Everyone, and welcome to another episode of Women Like Me Stories in Business. I'm your host, Julie Fairhurst, and today I have a lady that I met at an author fair that I attended and was just so drawn to her. And you'll find out why when we start our conversation, but she's quite an amazing lady. Let me tell you just a teeny bit about her and then we'll dive in. So, we are joined by a woman who has mastered the art of reinvention and storytelling. Melodie Romeo, don't you love that? Melodie Romeo, also known by her pen name Adele Lane, an award winning author known for her gripping historical fiction, fantasy adventures, and strong, intelligent heroines. Holy smokes, that was a lot for me to say here. Well, welcome, Melodie, and thank you so much for agreeing to join us. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. This is exciting.
Oh, good, good. Okay, let's just dive right in. So, Melody, let's start at the very beginning. So, who were you before your author life? Because you have quite an interesting story.
Well, I started out as a school teacher and a mother, and I had taught history mostly for about 24 years. I have a master's degree in history. My first passion was music. I was going to be a band director, but that didn't ever work out. I still play my French horn though, so that's nice. So I did teaching, and of course, school teachers in Mississippi don't make much money. So I always had to have a second job. And I did a variety of things from being a Kaplan test prep instructor to working at a Home Depot store and just a whole big variety of things. Ran a farm and sold produce and meat and all kinds of things. And so always busy, always doing something, but always writing in the background. Just it wasn't getting published, but it was getting written. So I was practicing um, without anybody really knowing it, I guess.
Yes,
So
yes.
then, so then, in my early to mid 50s, I can't remember exactly how old I was, 53, 54. Um, I just teaching got to be too much. It was too stressful. There was too many demands from the state, from the district, from the principal's office, from the parents who were never
Mm,
there, and we were supposed to do their job for them, and it just it was affecting my health.
mhm.
And so I made a very bold move at that point, which was to retire early. I had enough years in to be vested for my retirement, and find another job that was going to be less stressful. And that way, maybe I could get rid of some of my health issues. And I started searching for all these different office type jobs and things like that would, you know, have my computer skills and organization, and they all wanted me to start at a beginner level. And that
Mm.
was making less money than I currently was. And that wasn't going to do. So I saw this thing about article about truck drivers and how much money they could make. And I had always kind of in the back of my mind thought that would be fun, travel the country, see everything, get paid just to sit behind the wheel. And so I looked into it more, picked out a very reputable company, and took a plunge. I gave up a for sure job that I would have been in until I died if I had stayed, but I might have died a few years early
Really?
had I stayed. So, so it was a little scary at first because while I was in the training school to get my CDL, um, we weren't really getting paid. So I went about 6 weeks without a paycheck. But
Oh,
there was, amazingly enough, in the bank to cover the mortgage and the bills for that amount of time. And so then I started out as a lease driver, and I was driving a lease truck from the company. And I learned my way around what to do, decided if this was something I wanted to stick with or not. And so then, after a couple of years, I bought my own truck and created Driving Edge Transport. So that was my LLC label for my own business, but I was still with the company that I drove for. They provided my refrigerated trailer, and I provided the truck. So my
Wow.
percentage went up, and my payments went down because the obviously the loan payment was far less than the lease payment had been. And so then I got the truck paid off, and then I mean, I was making two, three times as much as I did
Oh,
teaching school driving that truck. But it was the first time behind the wheel was really scary, and just the whole leap of faith into the unknown was scary, but it definitely
so
paid off.
what kind of things were you hauling? So you had a refrigerator truck. Were you hauling
Yes,
foods?
mostly food, mostly
Mostly
food.
food.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
all through the United States, were you in Canada as
Yes.
well, or?
I was not. My company did have some cross border uh, products, but they were few and in high demand. So other drivers who had been around longer got to have those routes. And I just went to all 48 continuous states, and it was really exciting. So I got to see them all.
Wow. Wow. Well, you are so brave. I mean, that's the ultimate in entrepreneurship, right? Is like having that leap of faith. And good for you for recognizing you that you weren't happy
Yeah,
and it was affecting your health. And so you
yeah.
took those steps. So
Oh,
where
and the all of the acid reflux disappeared. All of the other things that I had going
Mm,
on just completely evaporated. I
yeah.
currently take no medications whatsoever.
So yeah, there you go. Absolutely. So writing during that time period as well?
I did. I started writing when I went out on the truck because, believe it or not, even with an 11-hour driving day, I had more time to write than I did when I was teaching school, which was pretty much all-consuming endeavor. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I started out, it was really exciting. A former student of mine, who had read my first book that I actually had a vanity press do because I couldn't get a publisher. It was just ridiculous. That was back in 2002, and I swear I will never do that again. But he loved my book. It was kind of a historical thriller about Vlad the Impaler. And he was now a young adult, and he was writing, and he was doing horror genre. So he invited me to do some short stories for anthologies that he was in. And so that's kind of how I got back into writing after my years of rejection. And so that was exciting. And I was doing those under my name, Melodie Romeo. And I did that, for a couple of years, just a short story here and there. And then I did a short story novella that was part of an anthology for a lesbian publishing house. And it was about a Victorian detective in London, and so that was very popular. And the company said, when I pitched them the idea for my book Heart of Sherwood, they said, "Oh yeah, we would love to publish that." And so this was in 2018, and Heart of Sherwood got published, and then it got nominated for a Rainbow Award for Best Historical Fiction, and then the publishing company went out of business. So once
Oh,
again,
oh,
I was at a crossroads. We're sorry, but we will no longer be selling your book. Therefore, if it wins the Rainbow Award, congratulations, but no one will be able to purchase it. So I had to do
oh.
something at that point, and I had made a contact who has a whole web of books that he deals with and authors that he helps out. And he said, "Why don't you just self publish it through Amazon? It's really easy. I'll show you how."
Yeah.
And so my mentor picked me up and held my hand through the process.
Oh,
And I got my book on Amazon, and it did win the award, and people have been buying it ever since. So that was,
congratulations.
thank you. So that was the beginning. The first of, I've lost track. I have 34, 35 books
Oh,
published on Amazon right now. And so that was the story of the first one. But it was scary because I had never done that before. you
No.
know, I didn't know how to do all that stuff. And
Yes.
I've been learning, and I learn something new every day.
Yes, yes. And so how do you find so you couldn't get a traditional publisher to pick up
Right,
your story? Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I hear that, I hear that a lot from a lot of authors. And all of the books that I have as well are all on Amazon as well. So thank goodness for Amazon because they really do help out a lot of authors.
Yeah,
They do. Yeah.
yeah.
But it
Yeah,
is
back in
a
two, yeah,
yeah.
back in 2002, when I took that drastic move of after, you know, 500 publishers and agents and hearing nothing back but three or four little rejection slips and the rest just crickets.
Yeah.
I said, well, I really think this has a chance. So I went with this vanity press, the ones where you pay them and they publish the book.
Yeah.
And of course, that was a very sad mistake. It got published, but nobody knew, nobody cared. It got no promotion, it got no
Yeah.
advertising,
Yes. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was very sad.
That's definitely a tough one for sure. You have a degree in
Yes,
history.
history, yes,
And
from
so,
the University of West Florida.
wow. And so obviously then that's helped you with a lot of your of the books. So, sure. What kind of genres are you doing? And I know we spoke a little bit before. I was really interested in learning more about how much work you put into every one of your books.
There's a lot of research involved, a lot of research involved.
Yeah.
For this one, I really got to know Eleanor of Aquitaine. I got to know her quite well because she's a character in that book. And so then I have several that are up for awards this year. This one is The Long Winter of Midgard is in a Viking series that I
Oh,
do called Tales from Norgavern.
I love
Isn't that
the
a beautiful
cover.
cover?
Love the
It's a beautiful
cover.
cover. I cannot take credit for that. My artist did that cover.
Oh,
But yeah, a lot of research into all the Norse mythology and Viking culture and keeping up with the most recent it's on the tip of my tongue. The archaeology discoveries
yes.
that actually do prove that yes, women were involved in warfare, among other things. They could be jarls, they could be queens in charge of their region. That we're learning more and more about that. You know, when first people had discovered these little figurines of Viking women warriors, they said, "Oh, those are just depictions of the Valkyries." But where did
Oh,
the idea for the Valkyries come from anyway? You know, there must have been some tradition of women with swords in order to come up with a
yes.
Valkyrie. So there's been a lot of new archaeological discoveries that go into that research. Probably the most research that I did was for this book, Atlantis Land of Dreams, which is also
Oh,
up for some awards this year. And it's a historical fantasy because we don't know exactly what Atlantis was like, but I did do
yes.
a ton of research on everything written about Atlantis to come through and try to resolve the different versions and how what Plato said could go along with what more modern people have said and where it was and how it got destroyed and I think I've pieced together a really logical, scientifically explainable resolution for that.
Wow. That is just that is because what I do is of course true life stories for women. So there's
Right.
not a lot of research that I'm doing other than speaking with the authors and helping them to craft their stories. But
Hmm.
I'm I've just listening to this just really encourages me to maybe dive a little bit more into any little areas that I can find that might help to just help with our stories and our books. But I think it's great. You're not just sitting down with your pen and your paper. You're actually crafting it and figuring it out and putting it all together. There is so much work involved in in your type of writing. Well,
Yeah.
writing in general is a lot.
Yes, well, it is. But then sometimes I just want to do something fun. And so this book took me about 3 weeks to complete. Um,
Oh,
Traffic Over 69, because it's about an author attending a convention who has a stalker who shows up at the convention. So it's a suspense kind of a book, but it was all stuff that I already know and is part of my experience as being an author, and so it was very quick and very easy to write, and
ooh,
so I throw some of those in there because like this one took months and months to
yes,
finish. So yeah.
yes, yeah. Wow. Okay, so do you remember the moment, or was there a moment that you knew you wanted to be an author? Or was it something that just sort of casually happened to you?
Well, I don't know that there was a moment that I wanted to be an author. I always enjoyed telling stories. And I wasn't an only child, but my sister was 12 years older than me. So she moved out of the house, and basically about the time I started kindergarten, or first grade. And so I was essentially an only child. So I spent a lot of time just talking to myself, telling stories to my stuffed animals. In grade two, I wrote my first book. It was about dinosaurs. It was mostly plagiarized. Um, and then I kept
Oh,
writing stories through school just as a hobby. My mother loved to read, and we had this big, huge bookshelf full of all the Agatha Christie's and all the classics and stuff. And so she was very into reading, and one of our activities would be to lie in bed and read together. And then I went on to college to become a musician and ended up teaching history and had kids and had life and was very, very busy. But on weekends, my partner and I would go fishing, and she would fish and I would write. And so we did that, and that was fun. But it wasn't until I started driving the truck and the kids were grown and moved away, and I didn't have all those other responsibilities that I could actually focus on taking it somewhere.
I love that. When you were talking about your mom and you lying in bed, reading your books,
Hmm.
it's such a wonderful visual. And that's where I can totally see that's where you got your love. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So your characters are brave, they're clever, and they're driven. So where do you find the inspiration for them? Where do you come up with your characters?
Well, sometimes I look in the mirror. Um,
Yes, yeah,
a lot of historical fiction, especially historical romance, is written around the concept of the damsel in distress and the dashing male hero must rescue her. And I thought, let's break that stereotype. Why can't the woman be the hero? Why can't she be the one who is courageous and stands up against the wrong? And so I just kind of wrote that in there.
I love that. And why can't we?
Exactly.
Yes, I love that. That's so a lot of your characters, or most of your, I mean, the picture behind you, the cover behind
Hmm.
you is
Yeah.
amazing. That's an
Oh, thank you.
amazing cover. Love it. And
Bookbrush did that. Bookbrush did that. It's actually a
brush.
movie poster. Let me see if I can get. There's
Oh,
the
there
whole
you
thing.
go.
So
There.
so so I have, as an independent author, I have to hire everybody who does everything for my books. I don't have a publishing company to do that.
Right.
So one one that I use is called Bookbrush, and they one of the many different graphics that they do is creating a movie poster of your book, as if it was going to be up at the theater and if people were going to see it and who it was starring and all that kind of stuff. It's just a publicity thing, but yeah, that's my
But it's
my
beautiful. And what a
thank you so
great
much.
That's great that you shared that. Thank you, because we have a lot of authors that I have a lot of authors that
Uh-huh.
are watching, and I think it's beautiful. I had no idea that you could actually get that done. That's
Oh
a great
yeah.
piece. Great
Yeah,
piece.
thank you. And you can make movie trailers for your books, and
Oh,
that like book trailers, and then it would be
yes,
like a movie trailer, just a couple of minutes long, going through
yes,
some of the highlights and in a
yeah.
video format.
So on the marketing end, then, Melody, you're obviously doing all of your own marketing
Oh,
then.
oh yes, oh yes, yes.
Why
Lots
do
of
you
time spent on marketing.
Yes, yes. And so where do you do most of your marketing? Is it strictly on Amazon? Are you using social media? Where are you advertising?
I always run Amazon ads.
Okay.
And I keep the ads running to the first book in each series. I may not keep ads running to all 13 of my lessons in murder books, but but I keep the ads running there. I have done some book club ads from time to time. I've tried Facebook ads several occasions. They turn out to be so expensive. And the
Yeah.
problem is, it's very difficult to determine where the sale of your book comes from. I mean,
Hmm.
you put all this stuff out there and you see sales, but you don't know where the person saw your book to be attracted to it in the first place. So I don't know if the money I'm spending on Facebook's ads has generated sales, or if they came from Amazon ads, if they came from my Facebook page, my group. I do know that my biggest core support is from my newsletter list. I have subscribers. I have almost 5,000 subscribers to my news list, and they are I can count on them to buy a book. So that's really
Oh,
very, very
yes.
helpful.
Oh, for
It,
sure.
it it took many years to build that list. It's not like you just go out there and suddenly have 5,000 subscribers. So
Yes,
it took
yes, for
many
sure.
years.
So, what advice would you give to any female authors out there that are wanting to get in? And you know, you probably know this. There are so many writers. Actually, was
Yes.
looking up the statistics, and I don't remember exactly the statistic, but I read it a while ago, and it was something like, I'm not going to be accurate, but it was something
Yeah.
like 90% of women want to write a book, but only 6% do.
Mhm.
So, what
Well,
advice could you give?
with the advent of Amazon um, KDP, which is the publishing platform, anybody can write a book. Also, with the advent of Amazon KDP, millions of new authors have flooded the book market. So,
Yes,
so you
yes.
have kind of a two-point thing. If you know someone in a publishing company, if you have an in, that's a great way to go. But if you're like me, who was kind of on the outside, and when she finally found a small press, they weren't able to stay operating. Um, then Amazon is where you turn. Um, you will have to have your book proofread. You don't want people to think that, oh, if I get anything by this author, it's going to be full of spelling and grammar errors. Um, you want to have a test audience. I have beta readers who, or people who I have them read my book and give me their thoughts back. What parts did they like, not like, what worked for them, what didn't. And that has given me some very beneficial feedback. And then once I have it ready to go, it needs to have a cover. And I do some of the covers myself. I did this cover. I did this cover, and I did this cover. But my artist, who does most of my historical fiction work, did this beautiful, beautiful cover,
I
and I
love that
pay him
cover.
to do this. It is lovely. All the books in the series, he's done beautiful covers for. And it really depends on your genre, because if you're doing historical fiction, people expect to have this beautiful painted scene on the cover.
Yes.
And so, you want to get a cover that matches your genre. That's very important. And if you're writing nonfiction, you want a cover that addresses the topic of the book. Okay. So then it has to be formatted. You can write it in a Word document or a Google Docs or whatever you want to write it in. But in order to publish it, it has to be transformed into a PDF book format, which is
Yes.
something most people cannot do on their computers themselves. And it has to be, if you're going to have an ebook, and ebooks do typically sell better, then you need to have it formatted for EPUB. And you can either hire someone to do this. A good formatter won't charge you more than $50, usually about, $30 or $40 to format. If you're only going to write one or two books, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
But if you're like me,
Yes.
you buy your own software and you're doing it yourself on your computer. So
Yes. It's a lot of learning, but once you learn it, you've got the skill.
exactly, exactly.
Yes. Yeah. So and so what do you think about like why do you think you had difficulty picking up a traditional publisher? I know they're tough out there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, First of all, they get inundated with millions of query letters a year. And pretty much they ignore anything that doesn't come from an agent. But then getting an agent is equally difficult because each agent can only handle so many authors and do them justice. So you
Yes.
start sending in your letters to your agents, and they're all full up, and they're all full up, and they don't have
Yeah.
anybody. And then it's so easy to be scammed these days because there's a lot of grifters out there who want to charge you money and promise you the moon, and then they just take your money and you never hear from them again.
Yes.
So you have to be very careful, but it is difficult to get with a traditional publisher if you don't have some sort of a connection that will at least get someone to read your manuscript because they won't even read it, they won't even look at it if they don't have a reason to.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I think just like what you said, the problem is they just get inundated
Yeah,
and it would be easy for you to be lost for any author to get lost in the shuffle of all of that. Yeah.
yeah,
I think there's a lot of there's traction and I think that for example, for you, so you write those books, you're involved in the editing process, you're involved in the cover process, you're involved in the whole putting the manuscript
hmm,
together, and then you're the girl who's putting it on and doing the marketing and it is a
yeah.
lot to do, but it's also very exciting and it's very
It is.
rewarding.
It is. And if you are with a traditional publisher, you are going to have somebody who will do the cover for you, who will do the editing for you, who will do the proofreading for you, who will help get them. You won't have to pay these people. They're going to do that. And they will even give it some nominal promotion. They'll put out a press release. They'll get this or that. They'll get it into bookstores. But even traditional publishers expect authors to do their own marketing as well.
Yes.
That is the contempt that is the way of the world today.
Yes.
They'll meet you halfway, but they expect you to be out there garnering followers as well. Um,
Yes.
and but then there's the flip side of that. They then take control of your creativity. If they say, we don't like this part of the story, it's got to be cut out and redone, then you have to do what they say. If they give you a cover you don't like, you're stuck with it. So when you're an independent author, you have complete creative control. And of course, yes, you are responsible for everything. You have to pay for everything. The buck stops totally with you. When you have a publisher, there's someone to help you. There's someone to do these things that you don't have to pay out of pocket for. And if it is a legitimate publisher, you do not pay them a penny ever. They pay you your percent of royalties the same way KDP pays me my percent of royalties. And there are other ways to go. You don't have to self-publish with Amazon. There are other outfits out there, Smashwords and some other places that you can
Yes.
get your books done as well.
Yes, yes. Thank you for that. That is a great insight, I think, for anyone that might be watching or listening to us to understand, what is all involved. It's one thing to sit down
Hmm.
and get that book written, which obviously, if you don't have the book written, then you can't do any of this.
Right.
So you need to get that book done. But then all of the stuff that maybe people don't understand in the background that we all have to do. And how many books do you have now, Melody?
I don't know, 34, 35. I lose track.
Like,
Because I have, as an independent author, so this is how I've made traction. This is how I'm actually able to do this for a living now. Is the You really do have to have a lot of books. You cannot be that that author of that one book, Gone with the Wind, and then or To Kill a Mockingbird, and then that's all you write.
yes,
If you're an independent author, you get your following, but you have to keep feeding them new books to buy. So the more that you can produce with quality per year, the higher it's going to boost your income. So it depends on the person's reason for writing. If you're wanting to write your memoir, or you're wanting to write your knowledge to pass on to other people, you don't need to worry about making lots of money or getting huge followings. You just want to put your wisdom out there to share with people who are interested in it. And there's totally different approaches and amount of workload that's involved depending on the direction you want to go.
yes, yes. Yeah. You're just a wealth of information. And I know you are, seriously. I just appreciate so much that you're willing to offer your knowledge and your experiences. And certainly your teaching and your degree that you have helps with that. I just do you do public speaking at all? Have you gotten out there in the world and talked to any writers groups or anything like that? Or are you just got your nose in the grind and focusing on writing?
Well, I don't know. I speak at church a lot,
Yes.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not really
Not
a
so
paid
much.
public speaker.
Yes. Well, you do very well.
Although, well, thank you so much. If anyone out there would like to invite me to come and give encouraging words to women in your group, I would be happy to do so.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. It's great to have someone who's done it, who's doing it, and has all the knowledge, which is so helpful. Absolutely.
Oh, I don't
Next,
have all the knowledge. I'm still learning.
well, you have a lot of the knowledge, put it that way. For anyone that's sort of halfway through or starting, you've got some fantastic knowledge for sure. What's next for you? What's on your horizons?
Well, I have a new release coming out in July, which is the book that comes after this one. It's the next one in the series called Thrall of Deception, and it's kind of a historical mystery set in Viking times
Yes.
and everything. And then I have in August, I have a book coming out. It's an anthology of four novellas that's called Queen versus Queen 3, and it's in a series of Queen versus Queen books. And the topic for this anthology is mafia romance. So I've got a mafia
Ooh.
romance in that. I am currently writing Arsonist Match, which is the sequel to this book, which really, really is hot and has been at the top of the LGBTQ mysteries for quite some time. I'm very excited about it. It's rocketed my career. You never know, and that's another thing. You never know which book people are going to want. I spent 6 months of hard labor and heartfelt writing to get this epic created, and this little action first responder suspense
Yeah.
thriller has just gone to town. So I'm working on the sequel to that, which I hope to have ready for September. So yeah,
Wow. Thank you for saying that. Like, that's true. We don't know what is going to be the one that's
yeah,
going to take off or is going to do the best. Oh, thank you for that. Well, I'm excited.
yeah.
I love that. I love the Viking stuff. I'm Norwegian. I got a little bit in
Oh,
there.
yes. Yeah, yeah. Got to go for it.
Yeah. So see, before we closed, I have a few questions, more
Okay.
personal. Would you mind if I asked you? They're just to get to know you, and so your
Okay.
audience can get to know you a little bit
Sure.
better. Okay.
Sure.
So one of the questions I'd like to ask is if you could go anywhere in the world tomorrow, where would you go and why would you go there?
If I could go anywhere in the world tomorrow, I would go to Ireland because my partner wants to go back. And
Ah,
we don't have the money for that trip, and it would be a long plane ride. But if I could just go poof and put us there, and she could show me all the sights from her first trip to Ireland, and I could go to a castle and put my hand on the stone and feel the vibrations from 1,000 years ago. That would just be so awesome.
oh, you just made me shiver. Oh my goodness, would that not be beautiful? Oh, and you, of all people I know, should definitely go. That should be on the to-do list for sure. You have a really busy day. How do you like to unwind?
Um, I play RPG video games
Yeah. Okay.
and watch TV.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand what you mean. It's like taking because writing is so much
Hmm.
mind work. And so then to
Yeah,
be able to do something that is more reactive than thinking or just to watch
yeah.
TV. I'm with you. There's a few
Uh-huh.
games that I like to play, and I sometimes like to just get buried in a movie and not have to worry
Hmm.
about all of a sudden the movie's over and you're kind of, oh right, okay, and your brain comes back to work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um what about a favorite book, not your book, but what's a book that would inspire you or that you've read that you did found inspired you?
Well, early on, probably one of the ones, some of the books that inspired me to want to write were the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I started off with The
Oh,
Hobbit in
yeah.
probably upper elementary school, and then junior high, and I moved into the Fellowship of the Rings and the whole Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I just loved the world building, and I loved the fantasy, and I thought, oh, if only I could write like that. And more
Oh,
recently, I really enjoy Brandon Sanderson's books, and I think, oh, the world building. Oh, if I could only write like that, you know. So,
oh, wonderful. And so if you have dinner with any
mhm.
woman in history, who would it
Oh
be
Lord.
and why would you have dinner with her?
Okay, well now I would have to say Eleanor of Aquitaine because I would have to ask her, did I represent you correctly? Because that was my goal. And I really feel
Oh,
like, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I feel
no.
like I was communicating with the spirit of Eleanor, asking her, what would you say? What would you do? How would you act? So that I can represent you correctly in this book. And I would just love to chat with her. She was the most amazing woman of her time period, and she was way centuries ahead of her time period.
Love that, because I think whether you're an actor or whether you're a creative writer or any of those industries, any of those
Hmm.
professions, you have to intuitively kick in
Yeah.
to really get your character. Even myself, when I'm helping my authors with their true life stories, I still when they're telling me their story, I'm still visualizing, I'm still sort of
Hmm.
intuitively kind of picking up things so that I can help them. Uh, I
Yeah.
love that. I'm sure you were channeling her when you wrote it. I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Okay, my last one. If you could whisper one truth into the ear of every woman who is struggling out there right now, what would you say to them?
You can do it. Go for it. Don't be afraid. Put yourself out there because you are strong, you are powerful, you were made in the image of God. There's nothing you can't do. Go out there and do it.
I love it. I love it. And whoever's listening and watching, remember where Melody came from. She didn't just start writing. She did a lot of things to care for herself over the world, her time in this world. So, and look where she is now. So we can all do it. We just have to, sometimes we have to zig and zag, but we get there. Thank you, Melody,
Yeah.
so much for
You
that.
are welcome.
Oh, I just love all your words of wisdom. Really, I appreciate it so much. And thank all of you for listening to this episode of Women Like Me Stories in Business. And we'll see you again another time.
Thank you.